Hello everyone, welcome to Urbanscape Bangalore, and in today's episode we will be talking about the geranium ivy or the Pelargonium Peltatum. Before delving deep into the various aspects of this plant, let me tell you that this is actually not the geranium, which is another plant altogether. This is called the Pelargonium. Because the name geranium is simple to use, the name has become so common among a lot of gardeners worldwide. This is a native of South Africa. So in this episode, we will look at how to take care of these plants and also look at its propagation and repotting. So this will be an extensive video on this wonderful plant that loves to be planted in hanging baskets, window boxes and other locations where its long trailing stems can happily hang around. So a lot of you must be confused on whether this is an annual or a perennial. Ideally, this is a perennial which keeps coming year after year, but the ivy geranium is a little weird. There is all possibility that this plant could go dormant during hot summers and never bloom again, or sometimes it goes dormant like during summer and blooms during the cooler winter months. But I would suggest that you don't take chances with these plants and always take a cutting and propagate a new one to not lose your favorite collections of ivy geraniums. The flowers and leaves are slightly fragrant compared to the zonal geraniums, which are the non-trailing ones. The flowers come in variety of colors and there are multicolored flowers available as well. The difference in the trailing one is that the stems are very brittle and can break from heavy wind or movement of animals, etc. So now let us look at the growing conditions of this plant. Firstly, sunlight. So ideally, this is a warmth-loving plant, so if you live in a city that has temperatures between 25 to 28 degrees Celsius, then you can grow this under full sun. But in cities like Chennai or Mumbai, where the summers can be intense, you may want to keep this under partial sunlight. In Bangalore, where I'm from, I grow this under partial sunlight where the plant gets the southwest sunlight. So a typical behavior of these plants are that they trigger blooming during the colder nights or expect more blooming from the start of the rainy season until winter. So in summary, grow this in partial sunlight if you live in hot tropical Indian cities. Next will be watering. The plant must be kept consistently moist and not overwatered. Overwatering can cause a disease called edema, which is the biggest killer of the plant. Edema symptoms include blisters on the leaves of the plant, and eventually the plant will go dry and die. This is not a drought-tolerant plant at all, so watering is very essential. It loves a well-draining soil mix of 30% sand, 40% compost and 30% soil or coco peat. Fertilizing is very important for the plant to bloom vigorously, so using lots of vermicompost or even kitchen waste like banana peels will help with blooming. Or if you want instant results, you can use synthetic fertilizers like the DAP crystals, which is effective with blooming but does nothing to the soil ecosystem. So it is finally your choice on what you as a gardener want for your plants and everything else associated with it. You don't see too many pests on this plant, but edema is a cause of worry. Another secret to profuse blooming in this plant is deadheading. The more you remove old dead flowers, the more it will trigger the plant to produce more blooms. But if you're a lazy gardener, the best part about this plant is that it is self-cleaning, which means that the dead flowers and leaves fall off on its own. Now we look into the propagation of this plant with the help of stem cuttings. So I must tell you here that this is the first plant that triggered my passion for propagating plants. The thing was that I used to love the way this plant looked when I just started off gardening, but each year, for some reason, I used to see them not returning the next year. That compelled me to take cuttings, and I learned how to propagate plants thanks to this beautiful plant. So you can also let me know your first plant that you propagated by commenting below. So you can select a stem that you want to propagate. You can choose these semi-old stems that look a little brown rather than the new green ones. So as you can see here, these circular bands are called nodes from where the roots and leaves arise. Depending on the number of leaves you have in the cutting, you can take several cuttings. Now take a sterilized seccator and cut the stem just below a node. Remove some lower leaves, leaving at least 2 leaves intact, and then scratch the node area to expose the cambium layer that quickens the production of roots. Here I am not using any rooting powder, natural or otherwise. Remember, the propagation must be done when this becomes dormant, so maybe start taking cuttings after March or so. To prepare the soil, I will be taking a plastic container and will add some pebbles at the bottom for drainage. I will be using a well-draining mix of sand and compost, each of equal proportion, and then will add the cutting on the periphery of the container to avoid moisture loss. Additionally, I will also add the other cuttings to increase the chance of propagation. Now spray some water on the soil and keep this in an area where it receives morning sun and is sheltered from harsh sunlight. After a month or so, you will see new leaves, and after 5 to 6 months, the plant would have established really well like this. This is when you need to repot them into a bigger container. So this was propagated earlier, and I will remove the plant and show you its root system. Here you can see the roots have grown really well. If you want, you can plant this entire thing into a hanging basket without separating them to give it a much bushier appearance, but I want to use them in separate containers, so I'm going to separate them and replant them. Be careful while separating and removing the soil. Make sure you don't take off too many roots and disturb the plant too much. To replant this, use a bigger container and add adequate drainage materials at the bottom. Then use a well-draining potting mix of 1 part sand, 2 part compost and 1 part soil. Here I am using the same soil that this plant was in before so that it feels at home in its new container. Now add the plant carefully in the container and cover the roots with some more compost. Now compact the potting mix around the plant and add water. Now place this in a partial sunlight position, preferably an east location, till it grows new leaves and flowers. So I hope this video has helped you geranium lovers on how to take care and multiply your ivy geraniums. If you have found this video helpful, then please like and share. And if you find my channel interesting, then please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, goodbye.